Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in to this webinar. For those of us, I'm Ken Wong from the RGP of Toronto. I'll be leading the discussion and then introducing our speakers for the day. For those of you who are a returning audience and have been with us before, you'll notice something new. And you'll also notice we haven't been around in a while. We've missed you, and we're glad you've tuned in. And what's new is, we haven't been dormant during this time. We've purchased and learned this new webinar platform, hopefully to give you a more fresh and captivating experience with our webinars. One thing you're able to do, I'll run through this very quickly, is to resize your windows to suit your preference. And the other thing is to sign into the computer audio and test it using the menu bar that you can access by hovering at the bottom of your screen. If your computer audio is inadequate and you're not hearing us clearly enough, you may dial in, and you can find those numbers on the email message sent to you as a reminder for this webinar. We do want you to participate as actively as possible and share your comments, and you can do so by clicking the chat box. It will open up a separate window which you can also size and resize to your preference. One thing to be sure of is that the chat box is set to all panelists and attendees, and you can see the menu pictured there to the right of your screen. This will allow everyone to view your comments, and we can share in the discussion and learning. If you need support, you may email Caitlin Brandon at sunnybrook.ca. Her address is at the bottom of your screen, and she will assist you with your technical requirements. Now, there's something else new that we'd like to share, and that would be the Senior Friendly Care Framework Getting Started Toolkit. Some of you who have witnessed the evolution of the Senior Friendly Hospital Strategy will be very familiar with this. This is a toolkit to support the Senior Friendly Care Framework launched last fall, which provides support and guidance for all healthcare organizations practicing across the system. And here to present this toolkit to you are our Executive Director, for those of you who are just getting to know us, Dr. Barbara Liu. She's the Executive Director of the RGP of Toronto, also an Associate Professor of Medicine at the University of Toronto. Dr. Liu's specialty qualifications include internal medicine, geriatric medicine, and clinical pharmacology. She has a clinical practice at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center and is Medical Director of the Falls Prevention Program. Of late, Dr. Liu has led the Provincial Senior Friendly Hospital Strategy, including the Action Collaborative, a learning and implementation collaborative of 87 hospitals across the province. She's led the transformation of the Senior Friendly Hospital Framework that powered that collaborative to the Senior Friendly Care Framework and this toolkit you're about to witness, and leads the continued implementation work. Dr. Liu chairs the Senior Friendly Care Steering Committee and the Provincial Lead Steering Committee, featuring all LIN leads across the province. Supporting Dr. Liu is Wendy Zay. She's a project and quality manager for the Regional Geriatric Program. She's a registered nurse with a Lean Six Sigma black belt. So she punches well above her weight and manages complex healthcare transformation projects. Wendy managed the development of the Senior Friendly Care Framework and this Getting Started Toolkit, and manages the continuing and ongoing implementation work. Wendy supports and manages the Senior Friendly Hospital Action Collaborative and coordinates the steering committees and the provincial leads committees that I just mentioned. Without any further introduction from me, I'd like to pass things over to Dr. Liu and Wendy, who will lead you through the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you, Ken. This is Wendy, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We're really excited to present the new toolkit to you, and this webinar is going to introduce the Getting Started Toolkit, which is a companion resource to the Senior Friendly Care Framework. We're going to present a quick overview of the Senior Friendly Care Framework, which provides context for this toolkit. And we'll also explore upcoming senior-friendly care resources. But first, we'd like to see which sectors you're from. So we're going to pop up a poll and let you tell us where you're from. And just there it is on the screen. So please just give us an answer there. Okay, I'm going to close off the poll here. It looks like we've got most answers in. And let's share the results. It looks like most of you are from the hospital sector, 67%, 9% long-term care, 10% primary care, 7% home and community care, 10% government or administration, We don't have any older adults or caregivers on today, and we have 10% others. So thank you for joining us. It looks like we've got great representation here today. So I'm going to pass the presentation over to Dr. Liu, who's going to provide a quick overview of the Senior Friendly Care Framework for you now.
Thanks, Wendy. Before we talk a little bit more about the Senior Friendly Care Framework, we have another poll for you just to get a sense of how familiar you are with the previous Senior Friendly Hospital Framework and our new framework. Okay, so I'll just show that to you. So it looks like about 46% of you said you're familiar with the Senior Friendly Care Framework, 14% have used the framework, and 43% are not familiar with the framework. So we have a good mix of people on the line with us and a good opportunity for interaction and sharing within the group. So the Senior Friendly Care Framework was developed by the RGP of Toronto in collaboration with provincial stakeholders, including older adults, caregivers, and care providers. The Senior Friendly Care Framework builds on the success of the Senior Friendly Hospital Framework. It gives a foundation for achieving the best possible outcomes for older adults, but not just in hospitals, but across the healthcare continuum. The Senior Friendly Care Framework's guiding principles and defining statements collectively describe what senior-friendly care looks like. The framework was launched in October 2017, and our goal is to start conversations to support senior-friendly care as a collaborative effort across the healthcare system. These conversations have guided the development of the Senior-Friendly Care Getting Started Toolkit, which launched yesterday, which is what we're talking with you about today on this webinar. The toolkit answers the most frequently asked questions, such as, the Senior Friendly Care Framework is an excellent blueprint, but how do we implement it? How do we know how senior-friendly our organization is, and what can we do to improve? And finally, how do we compare with other organizations? The Senior Friendly Care Getting Started Toolkit helps bring this foundational vision to life by providing actionable recommendations and resources. The toolkit provides practical resources for assessing where an organization is on the senior-friendly care journey and for implementing real change. Your organization may be in the early stages of implementing change to deliver more senior-friendly care, or you may be quite far down the road and looking for ways to sustain your efforts. This toolkit, this Getting Started Toolkit, is designed to help your organization get started, no matter where you're starting from.
So the Senior Friendly Care Getting Started Toolkit is in essence a how-to guide for the Senior Friendly Care Framework. The toolkit helps bring the framework's foundational vision to life by providing actionable recommendations and resources. And it's got three components to it. It's got an online self-assessment tool with recommendations and questions to identify strengths and opportunities. There's implementation resources, which are a selection of curated tips and tools for each recommendation. And there's training modules for executive leaders and staff. So we're going to go into more detail about each component, and we'll give you folks an opportunity to ask questions and have a dialogue with us after each component here. So the first component is the self-assessment tool. And what it does is turns the 31 statements in the Senior Friendly Care Framework into 10 actionable recommendations. And it provides a way for healthcare organizations in all sectors to identify achievements and opportunities in their provision of senior-friendly care. It's one of the questions that folks asked us most. How do we really take the framework and implement it? How do we know where we are? So this is a tool that helps with that. We recommend having 2 people complete the assessment together. We suggest a leader in the organization who's been designated as responsible for senior-friendly care and a clinician who provides care to older adults. You may have more if you like, but we do recommend this 2-person combo. Now, our online tool is in a beta version. We've piloted it with several sites, and we made some revisions based on their feedback, but we're opening up the tool now for all sites to use until September 30th. And at that point, we're going to refine the tool further based on your feedback. What happens when you enter your results in the online toolkit is that it will be reviewed by the RGP of Toronto and will create a customized report card that we'll send to you. We don't identify to others that you've completed the tool, and we won't share your results with others, except we'll have an anonymized aggregate form, that is a report on results by sector, but not specifically which organizations completed this. Future development of the tool is going to allow for users to receive automatically generated reports. So you won't be submitting it and then sending to us. It would be automatically generated. So that's a future version. Now, I'd like to pause here and just provide an opportunity for our audience to ask questions or make comments about this component of the toolkit. To do that, please use your chat box and start typing. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this or your questions.
Maybe people are still thinking about questions that need a little bit more time, Wendy. Should we carry on?
Could be, we'll carry on. So the second component of the toolkit, as you know, there's many resources available to support senior-friendly care initiatives. In fact, a plethora of information out there. What we did was we created an implementation resource package, which really curates tips and tools to help you inform action plans. So after completing the self-assessment, organizations are encouraged to identify their priorities and create an action plan. Now, some organizations will prefer mapping out a multi-year plan, and some might want to just do a quick win, implementing a plan for a quick win. There's really no right or wrong way to create an action plan. Every step taken towards becoming more senior-friendly is an excellent step. So this is a resource to just help you get there more quickly rather than having to do your own intensive lit searches and figure out what you might want to implement. This is a good, quick to use resource. I see that we've got some questions and comments here. So, sorry, we'll just scroll up here and get to the beginning of them. Is there a cost associated with the assessment? No, absolutely free. Our pleasure to provide this to you. If we have questions about the toolkit, can we contact you? Absolutely. We've got a contact number right in the toolkit, a contact email address, so you're welcome to use that for any questions. For the toolkit, what are the timelines, and will there be site-specific reports? And if so, what's the turnaround time? So you're welcome to access the toolkit anytime. It was launched yesterday. You can start doing your assessments anytime. There will be site-specific reports. We'll be sending a customized report to the email address you enter in the assessment. Turnaround time, we hope to be as efficient as possible. It may take us a couple of weeks to get a report back to you, but we'll try and manage that as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Joanne. Because we're not sure what kind of response to expect at this stage in terms of how many organizations might want to access a self-assessment tool, we can't promise on a timeline. It's also something that we're hoping to make more automated in the future, hence this online version, and it's in a beta state. And we're hoping that once we get more experience with it, it will become more automated in the future, and the timelines will hopefully shorten down.
Mm-hmm. Another question here, should the clinician be involved in the hospital senior-friendly working group or a clinician providing frontline care? I would suggest you could use either. You do want somebody who is knowledgeable about the goings-on of your senior friendliness in your organization. So if that is the person who's on the working group versus the clinician frontline, decide, and maybe if you can have them both, that would be ideal. Another question, we used the Code Plus consultation group in 2011. That's excellent. Can we use this in addition to our assessment? Absolutely. One of the recommendations deals with the physical environment, and Code Plus is one of the resources that we do recommend. So this toolkit is really for people to use on any part of the journey that they're on. So the fact that you've already done some great work, this is additive to that. Okay, let's move on to the next piece of the toolkit. and that's Intro to Senior Friendly Care. So our toolkit comes with 2 training videos. They're each 5 minutes in length, so it's very difficult for people to say, I don't have time to do that. One is for staff, one's for executives. And the videos are a great foundation for staff and executives with information such as what senior friendly care is, why it's important. We look at the needs of older adults and some very quick wins on what they can do to make a difference. If your organization doesn't have training curriculum or educational material for staff and leaders on the basics of senior-friendly care, these 5-minute videos are just plug and play. If your organization has training curriculum, you may just want to refresh your content, and you're welcome to borrow from these PowerPoints. You can use all of the material or some of the material. We just ask that you give us credit for the material that you're using. So I'd like to pause here again to see if anybody's got further questions about this component or the other components. From Ken, would you suggest annual conducting of the self-assessment as a starting point?
It's a good question, Ken. It's something we hadn't talked about. We, as the foundation for what preceded this work was the Senior Friendly Hospital Framework implementation and provincial work. And the environmental scans that took place for the senior friendly hospitals were done on 3-year cycles. They were done in 2011 and 2014. And organizations seemed to respond to that cycling over a 3-year period, as it also mirrored Accreditation Canada type of timelines. So I think annually might be a little bit early in terms of doing the full self-assessment, but I think certainly internally an organization should be reflecting on their progress, on their improvement plans, and their goals and objectives, at least on an annual basis.
And I'd agree with that. And the nice thing about this toolkit is that nothing in here is prescriptive. It's all additive, helpful stuff for the way you're working with senior-friendly care initiatives right now. So do what is best for your organization. If annual seems to make sense to you, then by all means go ahead. But as Dr. Liu mentioned, that may be a little bit much.
Another question about how long does it take to complete the self-assessment?
So we did make some fairly major changes to the pilot assessment tool. But we found that it took between 1 and 3 hours with the first pilot. So we would expect, depending on the knowledge that your assessors have, this shouldn't take more than possibly an hour or 2, could even go quicker.
Mm-hmm. And most of that time was spent, I think, connecting with other people within their organization to get the information required to complete the questions. And it tended to be, these organizations were larger organizations, so there were pieces of information that needed to be gathered from various areas. But if you were a smaller organization, it would probably take you much less time to finish the self-assessment. Question from Kelly Milne. Any thoughts of how LHINs are linking senior-friendly hospital and senior-friendly care? Well, that's a good question to put back to the group. From our point of view, the LHIN leads, we have a provincial LHIN leads group that has evolved from senior-friendly hospital and is now focused on senior-friendly care. Most LHINs are recognizing the fact that sectors need to be functioning in a much more integrated way, not just sectors, but all organizations. And so looking at sub-regions and collaborations at sub-regional levels that cut across different sectors. So senior-friendly care is very much aligned with the movement that's happening in the healthcare system as a whole, as well as the LHINs. If other people have experience and thoughts on the evolution of senior-friendly hospitals, senior-friendly care, please enter them in the chat box.
Okay, we'll move on. If your thoughts come to you while we're speaking, please feel free to enter them in the chat box at any point. So I'm going to pass the presentation back over to Dr. Liu, who will cover who was involved in the development of the toolkit and talk about the upcoming resources.
Thanks, Wendy. So before we explore the future resources, we'd like to say a big thank you to the many people who contributed to the toolkit, its development. They're listed here, as well as at the bottom of the slide. There were many individuals and groups that contributed to the work that we couldn't list all of them. And I hope that they know who they are. We are extremely grateful for the commitment of many people to making this framework possible, as well as the sites that piloted the self-assessment tool that are listed at the bottom of the slide. So upcoming resources we wanted you to be aware of. The Senior Friendly Care Getting Started Toolkit will be a dynamic package, and so we'll always be updating it with more resources and improved resources. So it's a great opportunity for you to send in your feedback as well as your ideas for what other resources would be helpful to you. In the immediate future, the next set of resources to launch will be the Senior Friendly 7 Toolkits, which are expected in the fall of 2018. The Senior Friendly 7 Toolkits cover 7 priority areas in the care of older adults. These areas are cognition, especially delirium, mobility and the prevention of falls, continence, nutrition, pain, polypharmacy, and social engagement. These resources will provide practical tools and tips that are applicable across the sectors, as well as self-care and family care tools and resources directed at older adults and their caregivers. By late summer, so just in the next few months, we'll be launching the Senior Friendly Care Forum on our website. So this will be a place for care providers of older adults to engage with each other on topics of interest and pose and answer questions, and hopefully develop into something like a community of practice where people are exchanging ideas and helping each other in a collaborative way. We welcome your thoughts on what you think about these upcoming resources, and as I also mentioned, ideas on what you would like to see us develop next or develop together with you. So please use the chat box and let us know what your thoughts are. So from Michelle Murray, the Southeast LHIN uses the Senior Friendly framework to inform our older adult strategy. We have incorporated local obligations and indicators from the OAS into our SAWS. The older adult strategy into your SAW. So that's terrific to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Michelle. Will the resources be bilingual? We're working on that right now. So we have a limited number of communications related to the Senior Friendly Care Framework Getting Started Toolkit that are bilingual, but it's an ongoing work in progress to translate the rest of the resources. And Marie, if you have any leads on ways of getting that translation accomplished in a cost-effective way, we would welcome some help with that. OAS was the older adult strategy, and SAA are service and accountability agreements. So in the hospital, it's an HSAW, hospital service and accountability agreement, or hospital sector accountability agreement, and then MSAWs are what the rest of the sectors have, which is a multi-sector accountability agreement. Is there or will there be a focus on Indigenous health?
So I would say as part of the framework, looking at the diversity of older adults is definitely a component. We haven't called out the specific pieces or sectors that would identify as diverse, such as Indigenous or LGBT, but definitely it's part of it. But there isn't at this point a specific piece of the toolkit that focuses specifically on Indigenous health.
If people on the line or know of people that are working on this particular aspect of older persons' health in terms of the Indigenous population, we would welcome them to come forward and help us with the development of resources to address this this population specifically. Mm-hmm. And it looks like Jennifer Spencer is just testing out her chat box, but go ahead if you have a question there. We see your entry there. Toolkit for vision or hearing impairment. Not a specific toolkit for vision or hearing impairment, but there are components within the toolkits that address sensory impairments in older people and how it affects the care that we provide. I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, Bessie. Oh, that's a group at St. Mike's. So there's a question here from Megan Sharp about hospitals and organizations that are part of niche. Are the toolkits complementary to the niche modules? Megan, I would suspect so, and we would welcome feedback from those of you who are part of niche. So because niche is something that you have to purchase into, those modules aren't fully available to other organizations. So we haven't reviewed all of the niche modules. So if you have insight into those modules, we would welcome your feedback. What we have seen is that the niche was a nice a starting point for organizations, and I think that a lot of organizations that are a little further down the road in their senior-friendly journey might be looking for something more specific. I think that it's a great opportunity for us to have resources that are developed and promoted from within Ontario. And I think that given the change in our government just recently is something that we may be hearing more about in the Ministry of Health is, how are our healthcare dollars being spent, and keeping those dollars here within the province when we have so many great organizations and expertise that are homegrown in Ontario, like the RNAO guidelines, like HQO, organizations like the RGP, as well as all of you on the line. I think we have a lot to learn from each other.
And as we mentioned, these resources are going to be dynamic. So we really look forward to collaborating with others and growing this into a larger resource for people.
Great, thanks, Megan. And Ken wanted to add something.
Oh, hi. Yeah, just regarding the toolkits and the niche modules, we had a little bit of a different, they are complementary, but there was a different design brief on the Senior Friendly 7 toolkits. One of the features of the Senior Friendly 7 toolkits is the co-creation that's gone into it. The initial drafts were based on literature searches and an up-to-date literature review on those category areas. And the first round of co-creation came with inviting community seniors. We had, I think, just under 50 community seniors and caregivers participate in providing feedback to direct and shape those toolkits. The second round of co-creation came at our recent Senior Friendly 7 or Senior Friendly Care provincial conference. And that's where attendees from multiple sectors from around the province, from their clinical hats, were able to inform and advise us on the toolkits. The key on these toolkits and the design is that it's intersectoral. So what you'll see is perhaps in the niche, because the niche program originated in the hospital sector, you'll see very specific and detailed information for the hospital sector, whereas this toolkit really tries to take a stab at bridging the gaps between sectors. It provides very carefully selected, so few in number but high impact resources in all sectors of healthcare practice and for the various tiers of training. So there will be stuff there that's relevant to healthcare professionals, to nursing and interprofessional staff, in the polypharmacy for prescribers, for doctors, and for pharmacists that are running the Meds Check program, and also for PSW level support, as well as patient and family self-care. So I think this is where the difference arises in this toolkit, is its focus on the system as a whole. I hope that provides you a little bit more detail of how they differ and align with the senior-friendly care philosophy.
Thanks, Ken. And Megan McMaster has typed in the chat box a great resource from the Indigenous Cognition and Aging Awareness Research Exchange, iCare, with 2 A's. And the website is there. We're just having a quick look at it right now, and it looks like a fantastic resource. So thanks so much, Megan McMaster, for sharing that. Yeah, and we'll definitely reach out to see if we can work more closely with them and on the senior-friendly care framework and tools.
And then the other comment that Megan had made was regarding the LGBTQ community. Rainbow Health Ontario and 519 Community Centre in Toronto, do have great resources for culturally safe access to health resources for this group. Thank you for sharing that.
So other upcoming resources to help you stay informed. The toolkit will be updated regularly with new tools and resources. And again, we've already started hearing from you about things that can be added, so thank you so much. The most recent version of the toolkit is currently available on our website. And for you to receive notifications when resources are updated, as well as information on the collaborative and innovative ways to help you achieve better health outcomes for older adults across the continuum, you can subscribe to our monthly Senior Friendly Care newsletter, and there is a link either in the slide deck or we'll send it out to you afterwards. And it's also available on our website for you to sign up for that newsletter, which is full of great information if you haven't seen it. Wendy does a fantastic job putting really valuable nuggets, high return on investment in terms of your email real estate. They're really quick, short, and helpful links and tidbits of information there. So we have time for more questions and discussion if people want to type in the chat box. I'm just going to make this a little. Lynn is having trouble seeing the chat items. We'll be sure to send that to you. Did you click on the bottom of your screen and get the gray bar to appear? Hover down there and then click chat, and hopefully a chat window will open for you.
And it's Ken jumping in case you missed the instructions at the beginning. There's a little tab on the chat box that you need to tick to select all panelists and attendees. That'll ensure that you'll see the input from all of the participants.
It may be that some folks in their chat just sent it to panelists, as Ken mentioned, and not to panelists and all attendees. So that's possibly why people aren't seeing all of it. And
for those of you who might have had a few technical challenges seeing parts of the webinar, we are, as before, recording the webinar and archiving it, and we also have reports of the chat transcript. So if there's any key resources being shared, we'll be sure to share that with you in our follow-up emails, which, by the way, will include an evaluation that's coming to your inbox soon.
So it looks like people would like us just to repeat that resource. It's for Indigenous care. It's www.caare.ca. There's a question here about, is the assessment bilingual? All of the toolkit right now is in English, as we had mentioned, although some of you may have seen communications come out with French text. In the email, we had our initial communication about the launch of the toolkit translated into French as a request from some of the LINs.
Therese, to be thinking forward in terms of the assessment, we would be challenged to respond to assessments that are done in French with a report. We would have difficulty generating the report back in French. But I thank you for raising it, though. We're going to have to think about it some more, about how we can accomplish this.
So to clarify, somebody's asking, to clarify, the toolkit is available now on the website, which includes the assessment. Yes, it does. So the Senior Friendly Care Getting Started Toolkit is on the website, right on the home page. There's a there's a slash that says new, and if you click there, you'll get access to the toolkit, and there is a link to the online assessment in that toolkit. All right, why don't we just move to the end of the presentation? We've got more webinars coming up. If there are further comments or questions, just feel free to keep typing in the chat box. So over to you, Ken.
Great, thank you. So as mentioned earlier, we will follow up with you. We're going to send you an email that'll contain a quick electronic evaluation. We really want you to tell us what you think and some suggestions for improvements in the future. We had a short period of dormancy where we had paused the webinar series, and we're very happy to be back. As you can see, we've retooled, and we have this new platform to share with you, and welcome all feedback. In addition, with the continuance of our monthly webinar series, I want to let you know about our next presentation. That's actually 2 weeks from now, Wednesday, July 11th, also during the noon hour, and we have two fifth-year geriatric medicine residents who are absolutely crushing me with their enthusiasm. And they're going to provide two angles on screening, clinical screening in the geriatric population. Dr. Catherine Krause is going to talk about screening in the context of triage, and that's both for inpatient and outpatient geriatric services. And Dr. Molly Mehta is going to talk about practical implications and applications of screening for mild cognitive impairment and dementia in geriatrics. So please put that on the calendars. Actually, if you are on our mailing list, which you now are, you'll receive an invitation that if you accept, we'll give you a calendar link, and we hope to see you then in 2 weeks. If you have additional questions regarding the webinar series, above and on top of what you will share with us during your feedback, you may contact me, and my email address is listed there. Thanks, everyone. I think I counted more than 150 people attending. We're thrilled to be able to share knowledge and also engage you and get your feedback in all the tools that we're developing on behalf of the RGP. And if Barb and Dr. Liu and Wendy would like to say a quick goodbye, I will sign off for now, but thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Ken. We actually have a few more questions rolling in. So Kelly Milne is asking about creating a call related to processes related to maximizing the dissemination and uptake of the self-assessment and toolkit. Kelly, if you have thoughts on that, maybe you can explain a little bit more what you mean by creating a call. Another question was about resources for caregiver burden and or mood behaviors. From Shannon Burke. So we do have resources in the toolkit targeting caregivers, family members, with respect to the Senior Friendly 7, but we don't have something specifically around caregiver burden at the present time.
And just to be clear on the toolkit, is the Senior Friendly 7 toolkit that will be launching in the fall that will include those resources.
Right, so tools and resources for the older person and their caregivers to address things like mobility, delirium, continence. Slides will be made available, and we will also make available some of the resources that were highlighted in the chat.
It's Ken again, just jumping in there about toolkits on caregiver burden. We recently, you may have noticed if you visit our website, revamped to a much cleaner and user-friendly website. And what we had discovered in that process is the plethora of toolkits that were there, and no Dewey Decimal System would have helped us be able to sort and make them easily accessible. So if you don't see something there that you wish to acquire, we have an extensive archive of toolkits and caregiver burden. There are previous modules we had. Just send us an email, and we will send and link you to them and maybe help you more specifically with your needs.
Okay, it looks like the chat box is pretty much stopped. So we'll say goodbye and thank you to everybody for joining us today. We appreciate your attendance.
Thank you, everyone.